How do you handle God's ordained delays in your life? How many of you right now do you believe are feeling a delay that the Lord has basically put a pause in your life in some area, but you think it's from the Lord? Raise your hand. There's a lot of you. A lot of you. I think we've all experienced pauses in our life that are God ordained, but I'll tell you this, how we wait is something that is critical, and it's a tell for you of how you wait is how spiritually mature you are. Think about this, because you and I've said this before, we live in this Amazon Prime, society where we want things to happen right now. I order something and that needs to show up tomorrow. What we are willing to wait for, though, reveals what we worship. The things that we are willing to wait. Man, I am willing to wait, I guess, on my phone. Not really, but, it is what it is. But what do we do in the meantime? What do we do as we're waiting? That the Lord has promised some things. Maybe you're having to wait on that promise. And so what do you do in the meantime? Maybe it's taking a little longer than you were hoping for, that you were expecting. Maybe you're expecting something to happen quickly and it's not. And I'll just tell you that when we are waiting on the Lord is actually doing something in our life. He's refining an aspect of our life. Or he's saying, there's an area of your life that you haven't laid down yet, that I want to give you something, but until you lay that down, it's not going to be there. There's some promises that I know I've had conversations with some of you in the room here, that the Lord has promised you some children, promised you a spouse, promised you a job, those kind of things. And you're like, Lord, what is happening? Because I'm not seeing this in my, in the time frame that I want it to happen in. Where are you? And sometimes in the wait, we lose hope. And this is right where the enemy wants you to be, hopeless. But I'll tell you that the Lord is a God of hope. He's faithful to complete his promises. He's true to his word. If we look to him, stay faithful to him, I believe that what he's promised, you'll see. And even if you don't, he's still faithful. Did you know that we have idols in our life? Maybe it is a phone, maybe it's the television, maybe it's your children, maybe it's your job, your identity, your career. Did you know that even promises from the Lord can become an idol in your life? And this is a very interesting one. Sometimes we end up worshiping the promise rather than the promise maker. Our promised land might look like something, but we are so enamored with the promise itself that we don't actually look to the one who gave the promise. And then we find ourselves in an area of frustration because we're not there yet. You see, the children of Israel were in that boat. They had received a promise from the Lord that the Lord was going to take them to a promised land. And yet here they are baking in the desert. And granted to you, as we read our text, they haven't been here for very long. And yet frustration has come. And what boggles my mind about this whole narrative of the children of Israel is that they have seen the hand of God over and over and over in their life. I mean, they were miraculously brought out of Egypt. I mean, there were all of these signs and wonders that made Pharaoh relent so that he would let the people of God go. And then we saw right in front of their eyes that the Lord parts the Red Sea. I mean, you can't get any bigger than that. That is an incredible miracle to take place, that the Red Sea parted right in front of their eyes. And you know what? They get on the other side of the Red Sea, and now they're just like, okay, what is going on here? We're hungry. We didn't bring any food. We just packed a lunch for a day or two. I'm like, you've been liberated from Israel, or from Egypt, and you're going to a promised land, and you didn't pack enough food for only maybe a week or so, and now you're whining. You know how our kids get when they get hungry. I'm hungry. I want McDonald's. Sorry, I can't say that because my daughter's here. She didn't do that. So we find ourselves in this text. Moses has been on the mountain for 40 days. And we've spent the last 13 chapters, and I don't know if you realize this, and maybe I didn't articulate this very well, but the entire instructions of the Ten Commandments, the entire instructions of the tabernacle, all of that is taking place while Moses is on the mountain and the people are down below. So the people are by themselves, Moses is on the mountain, and while the people are down below, there's some frustration that starts to take place because Moses has been up on the mountain all by himself. And he's left the people down there to kind of fend for themselves. 40 days he's up there. 40 days is all it took for the people of Israel to all of a sudden fail to see the Lord. You know, I was thinking even in my own life, and we see this in society, how quickly people turn. How quickly people turn from one idea to another. We see this throughout society. And we see that maybe a vocal minority of a certain faction of people can turn an entire people into their ideas. And this is no different right here. I imagine in my mind that the children of Israel were all kind of locked down, waiting on Moses, but there were a few people in the camp that said, you know what, where is Moses? Is he even alive? I mean, what's going on? He's been gone for over a month. I think he's abandoned us. And so next thing you know, the grumbling starts spreading. And we all know that misery loves company, right? It's way more fun to complain about things than to talk about the good things, right? Anybody in here been a part of that, like just a complaining group? You know, there's always that person at work. They're like, oh my goodness, you know, they're just working us to death, you know. Yeah, it's called a job. I mean, but I deserve. They're like, how about we just be grateful we have a job? I mean, but you know what I mean. I'm like, no, what do you mean? There's something about being content. Scripture even talks about being content. We'll get to that in just a minute. But for the children of Israel, there was an idol that they didn't even know was there. And this idol that they had basically set their heart on the promised land. And their entire focus in their entire existence and the entire reason that they were in the wilderness to even begin with was for them to get from Egypt, from slavery, into the land that is flowing with milk and honey. But there was this little area right here of the Sinai desert that was really, it's about an 11-day journey from Egypt to the promised land, but all they did the whole time was this. You know what? I think we're going to go this way. Oh, you know what? Wait, this way? Wait, which way are we going? 40 years. The Lord was trying to teach them something. He was trying to get Egypt out of them before he could get them into the promised land. Because they had made an idol out of the promised land. We'll see this in the text. So today we're talking about idolatry, the thing that we worship. And so if you're taking notes, number one, idolatry begins in our heart. We're going to read about a golden calf that Aaron made. But the issue wasn't the calf at all, even though that's the highlight of the entire chapter. The issue was the condition of the heart of the people. That there was something that was deeper than the calf. There was a need that was deeper than what the Lord was providing for them. The need was that they would get to this place that was just amazing. It was like, I imagine in their mind, it was like, man, we're going to get to Disneyland. And how awesome is that going to be? Like, we're never going to have to work. We're never have to do anything. It's a land that's flowing with milk and honey. It's going to be amazing. We're not going to have to lift a finger. It's just like all the grapes and everything is just going to come to us. And so rather than relying on the Lord to get them to the promise that he had made to them, they were relying on the promise itself. Because their heart was not in the right place. So idolatry begins in the heart. The calf itself was not the problem, actually. Impatience actually was their problem. The idol, the golden calf, it just simply exposed what was already in their heart. And their heart was something that was far actually from God. And that's the part that I just absolutely cannot wrap my mind around. That they saw the hand of God over and over and over and over again. And yet they still, in a moment, they turn their back on the Lord. People rarely wake up and decide that they're going to reject the Lord. Idolatry, it usually begins in the wait. The rejection happens in the wait. When God seems silent, when the answers don't come, when prayers don't seem to be answered, when expectations aren't met, what happens is we begin to look for substitutes for God. And we see this over and over. We see this with all the patriarchs. There was a waiting period and they took matters into their own hands because they were so fixated on the promise that they forgot to fixate themselves on the Lord. Yes, they had faith. But I think, and this is where we can relate to these people, is that they had faith in their circumstances rather than faith in the Lord. And faith means that we trust the Lord in all circumstances. And even when we're not in control, we have to understand that by faith, he is the one in control. Faith says God is in control, and patience says, I'll take control. And this was the root of their issue. This is what was in the heart. It was control. They wanted to control their destiny. Yes, there was a promise, but they wanted to take hold of it and do it the way they wanted. And they thought, since they were in the desert, this whole suffering in the desert, man, that was for the birds. We're going to take matters into our own hands. We're going to stop this nonsense, and we're going to go do it ourselves. And see, this is how, for many of us, we treat trials and suffering. Is that trials and suffering at times takes our eye off of the Lord and puts it on squarely on our circumstances. And then because we do that, we try to take control of those circumstances. And every time we take control of those circumstances, disaster happens. See, when we know that the Lord is in control, He is in control, by the way. Did you know that? That we worship a God that is in control. He is on the throne, and He cares about His people. When we understand that He is the one in control, we can place our faith in Him. He is trustworthy, and because of that, we can endure. And that endurance is called steadfastness, and this is what we see in James. It says we should count it all joy, brothers, when we meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. Steadfastness means that I'm planting my feet somewhere and I am steady and I will be unmoved regardless of the consequences, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the storm that is in my life. I will be unmoved because my faith is planted on the rock of Jesus Christ. But Israel, they weren't steadfast at all. They were just impatient. And so Israel's impatience revealed their lack of trust rather than the lack of information. They had the information. They knew where they were headed. They knew that they were headed to the land of Canaan that was a wonderful place. So they knew the direction, but they had a lack of trust. So this is where we pick up in the text, Exodus 32, verse 1. When the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain, they gathered around Aaron and said, "Come, make us gods who will go before us. As this fellow Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what's happened to him." And so they decided to do whatever it is that they wanted to do. I love what it says in Judges 21, it says, "In those days, Israel, they had no king, and everyone did as they saw fit." This is a pattern of the people. This is our pattern. When you don't have leadership, when you don't have a direction, when you don't have someone that's in charge, you just do whatever it is that you want. And a lot of times, whatever it is that you want is not the right thing to do. Some need leadership. Some need direction. Some need wisdom. But we live in a world that says you control your own destiny, and so you are your own God. Number 2, idolatry distorts our view of God. If we view ourselves as our own God, we're not going to be able to see the Lord. It's interesting, just a few weeks, remember, Moses is on the mountain 40 days. He did have a brief conversation with the people from the mountain. They were down here, he was up there, talking about the 10 Commandments. And it's interesting that number 1 and number 2 are the very things that the people asked for. "You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth." And verse 22 says, "And the Lord said to Moses, thus you shall say to the people of Israel, you have seen for yourself all that I have talked to you from heaven." Again, they have seen the miraculous. They have seen all of the acts of God. They have seen everything. They have seen that Moses has been talking to God. The Bible says that Moses talked to God as a man talks to another man, face to face. They all knew that. And yet here the Lord saw above that and saw the heart of the people and knew immediately where they were going to go as soon as Moses was not in the picture. Thus you shall say to the people, you have seen for yourselves that I have talked with you from heaven, and you shall not make gods of silver to be with me, nor shall you make for yourselves gods of gold. And what do? That very thing. Aaron answered them in verse 2. Aaron answered them and says, take off the gold earrings that your wives, your sons, and your daughters are wearing, and bring them to me. So that all the people took off their earrings and brought them to Aaron, and he took what they had handed him, and he made it into an idol cast in the shape of a calf, fashioning it with a tool. And they said, these are your gods, Israel, who brought you out of Egypt. And they were trying to credit a golden calf for their freedom rather than God. It's interesting how human nature never changes. Because we've done the very same thing that they did. We probably did it today. We try to credit ourselves. We credit our circumstances. We credit other things instead of crediting the God of the universe and the work that he has done. We said, I did this. I made it. It's the money I made. It's the career I chose. It's the family that I made. Rather than saying, I am committed to the Lord here. And everything that I have, and everything that I am about, and everything that is in every fiber of my being comes from him. There's a difference in that. We believe in the Lord, just like the Israelites did. But what they did, though, is they misappropriated God's power into something that wasn't him. If you read this closely, they weren't actually denying God. They just wanted to put a face to God, which is kind of interesting to me. We're going to worship God through a calf. I love what it says in Romans. It says, although they knew God, they didn't honor him as God or give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creepy things. This is the tendency of human nature. Rather than worshiping an invisible God, which some people are like, how is that even possible? It's called faith. We believe in the Lord because we've seen his power at work. The reason you are here today is a testament to the power of God. If you hadn't experienced the power of God, you would not be here. Part of the power of God, and the most important aspect of his power, is that he saved you from an eternal separation from him. And by the grace of God who appeared in Jesus Christ, now we have a family, an eternal family. Thanks be to God. The children of Israel, they didn't believe that they were abandoning God, but they did believe that they could redefine who he was. This is what idolatry makes out to be, this super deceptive thing. It's not replacing God, but it's remaking God into something that fits our preferences. I prefer God to look like this. I prefer God to act in this way. I prefer to worship God in this way rather than this way. Oh, we don't call that idolatry. We call that denominations. Okay, I got to move. I don't want to get into that one. But see, when we have the right view of God, if we have the right view of God, it keeps us from straying into our own weakness and our own deception. And maybe it keeps us from straying into our own self-deception. Because when we are weak and when we are deceived, we compromise. Point number 3, idolatry leads to compromise. You see, when we get in the way of God, we replace him, or maybe we want to place things that are on an equal playing field with God. We place the things that we have, the things that we are, the things that we've done, all of those things on an equal playing field with God. God no longer exists in your life. He's just another thing in the list of many gods that you have. But if we believe in a God that is supreme over all things because he is the creator of the universe and he created you and I in his image, then we have to lay all of those things aside and say, Lord, you are supreme. And we cannot compromise on anything. I don't want to make God one more thing in my life. He is the thing in my life. Amen? And so this leads us then, if we don't do this, it leads us to compromising our time, our talent, our treasures, and even it leads us to compromising our morality. And this is exactly what happened in verse 5. It says, when Aaron saw this, he built an altar in front of the calf and announced, tomorrow there will be a festival to the Lord. And so the next day the people rose early. And they sacrificed burnt offerings and presented fellowship offerings. And afterwards they sat down to eat and drink and go up to indulge in revelry. And this is something that just gets me. When I read this, man, as a pastor, it frustrates me to no end. Is that the people here, they had a golden idol, something that they could actually see. And what did they do to worship it? They got up early. And they gave to this golden calf. And they did all of these things. They fell down and worshiped it for an inanimate object. And I think about how many times I'm unwilling to get up early and spend time with the Lord. How many times I'm willing, and maybe you're feeling the same way. This is why the room is half empty when the service starts, and that's no shade. But I'm just saying, man, if we truly worship the Lord, we'd get here early. And there'd be a line waiting in the door because he's worth it. But here you have people in this book and in this account right here that they got up early and they sacrificed their things for an inanimate object, and yet sometimes we're unwilling to sacrifice anything for the God of the universe. Now we have all of these different idols that we love giving to. It's on automatic draft. Netflix, Prime, Starbucks, yes. Whew. Don't mess with my coffee now. Imagine what could have been for them had they focused that same energy that was on a golden calf, that they focused that same energy on the God of the universe. How different it could have been for them. But as you read throughout the Old Testament, man, it was lesson on top of lesson on top of lesson, on unlearned lesson every single time that cost them years in the wilderness. I think if they would have got this right, man, they could have spent the next 10 days and made it straight to the promised land. But the Lord said, your heart isn't right. And this generation is going to need to die out before the new generation can actually experience the promise. Verse 7. And the Lord said to Moses, go down, because your people, whom you brought up out of Egypt, have become corrupt. And they've been quick to turn away from what I commanded them, and have made themselves an idol cast in the shape of a calf. And they have bowed down to it and sacrificed to it, and they've said, these are your gods, Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt. Think about the world today. In a world that bends to the loudest voices, man, it's not a surprise at all what they did. The few people yelling the loudest got the entire crowd to say, we want a calf. We want an idol. We don't want God. We want something that we made. Paul in Galatians reflects on this very same principle. He says in verse 6 of chapter 1, I am astonished that you're so quickly deserting him who called you in the grace of Christ and are turning to a different gospel. And now that there is, not that there is another one, but there are some who trouble you, who want to distort the gospel of Christ. But even if we or an angel from heaven would preach to you a gospel that is contrary to the one we preach to you, let him be accursed. As we have said before, so now I say it again, if anyone preaches to you a gospel that is contrary to what you read in here, and man, I'll tell you, the world right now is full of different gospels that have nothing to do with this book. And there is something waiting for those people that spread that quote-unquote gospel that is not gospel at all. Last thing is this. Number 4. Idolatry has consequences. Oh man. But grace has a mediator. And this is our hope. This is the hope that we have in Jesus. But it's naive of us to think that when we are disobedient to the Lord, that there's not a consequence. It's naive of us to think that there's not an earthly consequence to our sin. It's naive of us to think that there's not going to be a penalty to our actions that we have done. But it's also naive to know that there is no solution to those consequences. And this is the beauty of the gospel, is that no matter what we've done, no matter where we've been, no matter what idol we have placed in our life, there is a mediator. His name is Jesus, that gives us hope. You see, Moses did this very thing for the people. He became the mediator between the people and God. And we'll see this, and this is what it says in the text. It says, I have seen these people. This is the Lord talking to Moses. And he says, they are a stiff-necked people. They are stubborn. A stiff-necked people is actually an animal term. Anybody horse people? I know we got a few horse people. And sometimes you see when the horse puts their ears back and they're like, I ain't going there. You will, and you're just yanking on the reins like that, and they're like, And this is exactly how the people were described. They're a stiff-necked people. Now, and this is God talking, now leave me alone so that my anger may burn against them, that I might destroy them. And then I'll make you, talking to Moses, I'll make you into a great nation. Moses, he sought the favor of the Lord, his God. He said, Lord, why should your anger burn against your people whom you brought out of Egypt? You've done all this. Why would you let this be the thing? Why should the Egyptians say that it was with evil intent that he brought them out, to kill them in the mountains and wipe them off the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce anger. This is Moses pleading with the Lord. Don't be angry with them. Relent and do not bring disaster on your people. Remember your servants Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, to whom you swore by your own self, I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and I will give your descendants all this land I promised them, and it will be their inheritance forever. And then the Lord relented. And did not bring on his people the disaster that he had threatened. Moses prayed to the Lord. This is the picture of Jesus. Moses turned and went down the mountain with the 2 tablets of the covenant law in his hands. They were inscribed on both sides, front and back. The tablets were the work of God. The writing was the writing of God engraved on the tablets. And when Joshua heard the noise of the people shouting, he said to Moses, there is a sound of war in the camp. And Moses replied, it's not the sound of victory. It's not the sound of defeat. It's the sound of singing that I hear. And when Moses approached the camp, he saw the calf and the dancing, and his anger burned. And he threw the tablets out of his hands, breaking them into pieces at the foot of the mountain. And then he took the calf the people had made and burned it in the fire. And then he ground it into powder, scattered it on the water, and made the Israelites drink it. The consequence. Here's a little fun fact. The term broke the law comes from this. Tablets being broken. Why did Moses do this? Why did he take the calf, burn it, grind it up? Well, he did it to show the so-called God had no power and it could be easily destroyed, that they had placed their faith in an inanimate object that had no power. It could not speak, it couldn't see, it couldn't feel, it couldn't do anything, had no power at all. He also did it to completely obliterate this thing and to make people pay an immediate consequence of their sin. But he also did it to make the gold absolutely unusable because it had been corrupted. He said to Aaron, what did these people do to you that led you to such great sin? What did they do? Don't be angry, my Lord, Aaron answered. You know how prone these people are to evil. And they said to me, make us gods who will go before us. As for this fellow Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what's happened to him. So I told them, whoever has any gold jewelry, take it off. And they gave me the gold, and I threw it in the fire, and out came this calf. Man, you lie. It's like, when little kids, you ask them if they did something, they're like, I didn't do that. Like, I saw you do that. No, you didn't. I didn't do that. I didn't take that. I didn't eat that cookie. And you got cookie crumbs. You got some chocolate chip on your lip. I didn't eat the cookie. See, Aaron had an idol too. His idol was people pleasing. How many of you are people pleasers and you've made that an idol in your life? Moses saw that the people were running wild and Aaron had let them get out of control and so became a laughingstock to their enemies. Insecurity. Insecurity is the very thing that made them the laughingstock. Paul says in Galatians, am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? Or am I trying to please man? And if I were still trying to please man, I would not be a servant of God. And the Lord said to him, verse 27, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel says, each man strap a sword to his side, go back and forth through the camp from one end to the other, each killing his brother and friend and neighbor. And the Levites did as Moses commanded. And that day about 3,000 of the people died. And then Moses said, you have been set apart to the Lord today, for you were against your own sons and brothers, and he has blessed you this day. And that seems kind of harsh, doesn't it? This disobedience, this idolatry led to some people dying. Sin led to death. One of the passages that Kai, our kids director, as he was leading the kids, he led them through the Roman road. You guys remember the Roman road? Romans 3:23 is part of that. It says, for the wages of sin is death. Sin leads to death, but the free gift of God is eternal life through Christ Jesus. Jesus is the one that saves us from death. He is our mediator. Moses says this in verse 32. It says, but now please forgive their sin, and if not, blot me out of the book you've written. He says earlier, now I will go up to the Lord, and perhaps I can make atonement for their sin. Moses was willing to take the place of the people, but he could only do so much. Jesus took our place and did it for eternity. He's the one that blots out the sin. He's the one that because of what he did on the cross for us, he died in our place. It should have been us that was on that cross, yet he chose to take our place, to die a death that he did not deserve, that we deserved, so that we could live. Who do you worship? If someone watched your calendar, your bank account, your internet history, your conversations, your thought life, what would they conclude as your idol? See, the human heart will always worship something. The question isn't whether or not you worship, because you do. The question is whether you worship Jesus or something else.